Paddle games were a mainstay on Atari's original VCS or 2600 console. They originate from the Pong games that preceded the 2600's interchangeable cartridges and ability to bring the arcade home. But paddle games were a genre all their own, and eventually grew from the basic Pong and Breakout style games into attempts at long-form adventures like Jinks and especially Arkanoid. And knowing all this, it might be surprising for some to realize that the 7800, a console built upon the successful 2600 base, actually had no paddle games developed for the platform during its retail life. Homebrew developers have since decided to rectify this overlooked aspect of Atari's NES competitor by releasing a few paddle games for the Pro system. So in this video, I thought it would be fun to look at 3 paddle-compatible games for the 7800, and see which of them are worth playing and which of them you should pass up. And there's no better place to start than with Robert DeCrescenzo's breakout homage, Crazy Brix. Crazy Brix was published to the AtariAge store back in 2011, and it's the most traditional paddle-style game on the list. The idea is as basic as it comes, but with some nods and flares that are sure to invoke some nostalgia for Atari fans. Each level presents its own patterns and challenges, and you'll need to bring your A game to see the later levels for sure. To use the paddle controller, you'll need to insert it into the second controller port, and make sure that the left difficulty switch is flipped to the left. This is outlined in the manual, but I'm sure some people missed this little detail. Please note though, that I had to capture all these games from the original 7800 hardware, which is why the video isn't in HD quality. I couldn't get a single one of these games to work with the 7800 or 2600 Plus. Hopefully this can be fixed with an update, but for now, I can't recommend these games for those consoles, if you want true paddle controls. Anyway, Crazy Brix plays as you would expect, and the ball moves and reacts to hitting the bricks, walls, and especially your paddle in ways that make sense. It's all really solid in the gameplay department. And even though the game is basic, it hooked me in with the addition of nostalgic sound effects and designs. You will recognize early patterns as the simple ones from Breakout and even Super Breakout, but it won't be long before you encounter Space Invaders and the key from Adventure. This is a really smart way to pay respects to the early Atari games that we all grew up with and loved, while keeping the patterns themselves unique. However, this also means that not every level is built the same. Some are lengthy and challenging, while others are, well, gimmicky and short. But not a single one of them I would call bad. It plays well, and does what it should, all while hitting you in the nostalgia. The graphics aren't much more than what you would expect. As I said, the patterns are fun, but it's still just bricks, a paddle, and a ball. There really isn't much different visually that I could think about him trying, at least not on the 7800. But the sounds are where Robert DeCrescenzo really went above and beyond. Again, in an attempt to keep things familiar and to pay homage to Atari's history, the sound effects are all pulled from earlier games from the 2600. This is just a simple but brilliant aspect that goes a long way in adding a lot of charm to the package. I've been complaining a lot about the audio in 7800 games lately, but this gem of a title really reminded me of why I loved Atari growing up and why I decided to cover them today. In a sense, this game was my Ratatouille, if anybody is familiar with that reference. And really, there isn't much more to say about Crazy Brix, even if I wasn't trying to keep these reviews short and concise. It's a fun, brick-breaking game that works very well, and is sure to bring up some nostalgic feelings for fans of Atari. The sound is A+, and some of the best I've experienced on the 7800 in a good while. It's a simple game, but it works, and it brings a smile to my face. As do the patterns, even if not all levels are equal in challenge, especially the later ones. So with all that said, I'm going to give Crazy Brix for the Atari 7800 4 Pro-Line controllers out of 5. It's good, but the only real flaw is maybe the difficulty. Sometimes the game is easy, but it can get crazy hard too. But with that, let's move on to the next 7800 paddle game I want to look at. And it's an update to a classic that I personally love. Super Circus Atari Age, much like Crazy Brix, was released to the AtariAge store back in 2011 and was programmed by the wise and powerful Robert DeCrescenzo. And it takes the classic Atari Circus idea and expands on it graphically, along with adding a few unique ideas and options to the set formula. I loved Circus Atari as a kid, but I found it extraordinarily frustrating to play. It was one of those games that I loved the premise of, but I just couldn't play it well in practice. But playing this version as a grown man, well, I have to say that it's still frickin' hard. It made it all the more rewarding when I started to get the hang of it. Similar to the 2600 Classic, you take control of a clown on a teeter-totter, and you must move them both in order to catch a second clown who is jumping onto it from the side of the screen. Once you do catch him on the open side, it'll send your stationary clown upwards in an effort to pop balloons, and then you must catch him to repeat the process as many times as possible. Your goal is to pop as many balloons as possible before killing off all your clowns with horrible neck injuries. It's a brutal game, trust me. But this version, unlike the 2600 version stick figures, has some awesome, inviting graphics that really are kid-friendly and cute. Not to mention that the music that plays all the while feels appropriate and is well done. Overall, the presentation is just top tier, as one would expect from Bob DeCrescenzo. He is the GOAT for a reason. The options allow you to tailor the experience to your liking, letting you do things like change the graphics to the original 2600 mode, decide if the rows regenerate once you clear all the balloons, or if you wait until the whole playfield is cleared in order to replace them all. And of course, you have the option to use either a paddle or a joystick. Now you must follow the Crazy Brix rules of using the paddle, so plug it into the second player port, and, well, unfortunately the Plus consoles still don't work. But the difficulty switches. Again, much like the 2600 version, adds more obstacles to the clown's act. And this comes in the form of blocks that prevent you from reaching the balloons. I personally find the game hard enough without these blocks, but they're there if you should want them. I love Super Circus Atari Age, and I really enjoy the aspects that they added. If you play the mode where you must clear the entire playfield, you'll be rewarded with the AtariAge logo coming out from the side of the screen once you clear all the balloons. And once in a while, you'll even encounter some familiar characters from Adventure for more points. The power-ups work well too, and are a welcome addition to the gameplay, allowing you to clear certain rows, giving you a net to save one of your clowns from the floor, and so forth. Overall, the game is excellent in every category that I can think of. But man, it's just so hard. A lot of people find the game hard to get into because of the difficulty. I think they're probably using the gamepad, and this game works incredibly well with the paddles. But if you have the Plus consoles, well, you'll be stuck with that gamepad. So with all that said, and with considering the extreme difficulty, and the lack of variety once you get the hang of the game, I think I'm going to rate it 3 Pro Lines out of 5. It's good, but it's not going to be for everybody, especially if you don't have the option to use the paddles. But I personally really enjoyed the game, and I play it a couple times every year. But with that, it's time to move on to the most recent paddle game released as of this recording. And this one is from the minds over at Video 61 Atari Sales. Let me introduce you all to my most anticipated game from Video 61, Tile Smashers. Tile Smashers was released to the Atari 7800 in January of 2025. It was created by Peter Meyer, Lance Ringquest, and the rest of the team over at Video 61. Side note, but I personally love these 3D printed cartridges with the raised end labels. It's a nice touch for collectors. The game itself is dubbed a combination of Breakout, Pong, and even Pinball, and I can see where they were going with this. Each level is multi-tiered, with at least 2 screens, meaning that the screen will flip at certain times, usually when you've either opened a door or cleared the last screen. This allows you to bounce the ball to the next screen, which had me excited. The pinball elements come in the form of various obstacles, spinners, and bumpers you'll encounter around the levels, and the Pong aspect is in the form of computer-controlled paddles around the levels as well. Overall, the game doesn't look or sound bad, and I found it sort of charming for the console. Much like Crazy Brix, it's hard to think of anything too different that they could have done with the standard Breakout formula. And this game has that Video 61 signature style that people usually either love or hate. Me personally, I enjoy it, but that's just me. There are power-ups as well, much like in Super Circus Atari Age. But I find that these power-ups vary wildly in their usefulness. I do understand that 3 of these so-called power-ups are actually power-downs, but it's hard to decipher one from another while playing. These power-ups allow you to grow your paddle to a huge size, give your ball the ability to either power through every brick or sort of bounce through them, and you even gain the ability to guide the ball around a little bit. But you can also electrocute your paddles, taking away control for a little while, shrink your paddle down to a smaller size, and acquire something called Crazy Ball. And this is where my first complaint comes in. Crazy Ball makes the ball veer either to the left or right at random times. And it just feels, well, wrong. Again, I know this is the point of the power down, but it doesn't feel unique and fun. You see, in these kind of games, proper ball physics is key to making the game feel fair and challenging. But when the ball refuses to act the way that it should, well, that's where you start to feel cheated. And unfortunately, the ball physics were already a little wonky. Now, they aren't awful, but they don't feel as good as in the original Breakout or even in Crazy Brix. But it's forgivable, and the ball does follow a consistent set of rules that you'll learn quickly. So the game's not bad, just not great either, especially in the physics department. My biggest complaint, unfortunately, is the game's biggest selling point, the tiered game fields. I loved the idea of this before playing Tile Smashers, but the execution leaves a lot to be desired. The ball tends to travel from one screen to another, causing the screens to transition quite a bit without you really being able to control it. This is because the obstacles are close to the top of the screen usually, and the door is a large portion at the top of the screen as well. This results in large sections of the game where you just want to get down a tier to finish the level, but the ball continues to bounce itself up to the next tier as you attempt to keep it down in an act of futility. I feel that if the screen scrolled, this wouldn't be an issue. And it all feels very Alien Crush, if you're familiar with that TurboGrafx 16 game. That's to say that much like the original Alien Crush pinball game, the screen should have scrolled. Flipping it leaves a lot to be desired, and it's just jarring. I don't think it works the way Video 61 intended. Still, this game isn't bad. It's just a letdown compared to the last 2 in this video. Tile Smashers is solid and leans a bit to the easy side, so if you're a Breakout novice, then you might do well to start here. And again, the paddles work great on original hardware, no complaints there. But if you own the Plus consoles, well, again, you're SOL. But when comparing Tile Smashers to the other 2 paddle games, and after weighing the pros and cons of it, I feel that it's my duty to give it 2 ProLine controllers out of 5. Paddle game fans and Breakout fans will be happy enough to have it and play it, but most other people probably won't be able to forgive the numerous flaws. I love Video 61, and it pains me to say all that, but I need to keep my integrity, and unfortunately that's just how this game is. But you've listened to me ramble about 3 unique paddle games now, so let me start to hear what you all think. Do you enjoy paddle games like I do? Do you own any of these featured in this video? If so, do you agree with my scores? And which was your favorite that we covered here? Let me know about all this and more in the comments down below. And please consider following me on social media by searching for the Atari Network or the 7800 Pro Gamer. You can also join our Discord for access to high score challenges and just to chat with us. And consider leaving a like before you go. You can also subscribe and hit the bell icon, it helps a ton. We have a Patreon and offer YouTube memberships if you want to support us further. These classy Atarians have done just that, and I couldn't possibly thank them enough. Thanks to them, I can cover more things on the channel, replace and upgrade equipment, and do awesome giveaways, like our 5200 subscriber giveaway. Links to that and everything else is in the description below. And again, thanks for all the support, guys. You all rock. And with that, it's time to wrap up this video on 3 Atari 7800 paddle games. I've been the 7800 Pro Gamer, a man who enjoys hitting my balls against the wall for a few hours. Wait, balls again? Never mind. Yeah, anyway, I'm at the Atari Network, and I'd like to thank you all for watching. And remember to stay classy, Atarians.